Welcome to this week's Capsule Cast. This is the Capsule Cast for the All-Star matches, sweeper games, all the other good stuff. I am your host, Destiny, and with me I have my co-host, Doorguard.
What's going on?
And with us we have our guest for this special week, Snuffysam.
Hello.
So we got some great things for you all today, and honestly with that, shall we get moving on to what we have in store first?
For sure.
Yeah, let's go for it.
Alright. Moving on to what we have first, we have the sweeper games, and there's not a lot to show here, but this is basically what happened. So Ultimate Gohan being the champion of the sweeper games. Pretty sure we had double the amount we did last year. Some good moments were, well, of course, Ultimate Gohan killing everyone, and honestly, Bobby kind of went on a ham with Goldo, so that was pretty fun to see. Doorguard, do you have anything of a note for this?
Yeah, I know there was a lot. It's different if you saw last year's to this year's. They had, items per se. They actually had Pataras, so one less health bar, one less member, but they had all +1 stats. So some characters like Jiro were no longer weak enough to be on the sweeper team. But Bobbity, who B2 damage wise was always able to, has natural -2 defense and the worst melee in league, so the +1s didn't do enough. But yeah, if he connected with B2s, having super +1 on a character who already had good B2 damage, it helped out. But as the same with last year, surprise standout was Frieza Soldier, just kind of sitting there pointing at people and taking some, not necessarily taking anybody down, but always dealing like a bar or two pretty consistently. So while that's not exactly good when you consider like picking up a character as a free agent, it's still fun to see that he's holding out each season as at least a sweeper game, like, consistent guy. What about you, Snuffy? Is there any fun things you'd like to point out?
So yeah, I think Bobbity definitely was more than a lot of teams could handle. We kind of saw the same story a lot of times with these sweeper matches, where you just sort of get through the first couple people and get stuck at Bobbity. One thing to note is that while his melee is the weakest in the game, he has some really strong rush blasts, and those are boosted by attack +1. And we got to see those in a couple matches where I think that was the deciding factor. Like I think Slug that ended up really helping there, helping Bobbity. That is, not helping Slug. I will say Kid Buu was a really memorable victory with the planet burst snipe from across the map. That was really fun. And poor Birder, the only person not to get any kills, the only person to get ulted by General Blue. And yeah, that was rough for Sentai.
Yeah, I do know Sentai was one of two teams that were struggling with the turn-in of a character. I think they chose to be abstinent. So that was a build picked by staff. So not necessarily something that they cared too much about. Not necessarily the event, just like the person they wanted to send in didn't fit staff's criteria. So I know there were some arguments there, but the same thing happened, I think, with Budokai wanting to send in Cyborg Tao, and because he just didn't quite fit what staff wanted to make this stay competitive, it just kind of fell apart. Though some people, you see the Killed 2, those are all very strong characters. I know you guys probably aren't super happy with how Gogeta did, but you look at the other side, Kid Trunks is in there too, and people say Kid Trunks is one of the scariest characters. So, and the Kill 2.5, which is, you could argue, the same thing, has some pretty big hitters too, such as N Vegeta, who's #1 in the league, and Cell, who's always been a threat. So it's always a weird event, because you never know what's going to happen until it happens. Because I think nobody expected like Ultimate Gohan to do as well as he did. for how much it seems like he's been struggling. So it's kind of a fun breakaway from the norm.
Yeah, I mean, we were kind of in a weird spot. Regarding Gogeta, we kind of did something experimental on him. If Turles was in a higher spot, like if Turles was our MVP, we probably would have picked him because he counters a lot of their characters. But he wasn't really good enough to trust.
Pretty sure
And,
we're also thinking of Janemba as well.
Yeah, we were also thinking of Janemba, but we figured the super explosive waves and the finish signs and that sort of thing would be better. And you know, it wasn't the worst in the league. We did take out Babidi, so could be worse.
Yeah, but I think out of everyone here, most characters lost to Bobby because of his clashes, and I do believe Ultimate Gohan was the only person to win a clash against Bobby.
I think so? Maybe. Yeah. I don't remember, but if you say so.
All I know it's him. It could have been one other person. I just don't remember. But with that, shall we get moving on to second part of what we have here?
Sure.
Sure.
All right. Moving on, we have the Otherworld Olympics, the newest event for this year. We have Melee Olympics and the Super Olympics, with first place going to O'Reilly for the Melee one, and Super Olympics first place going to, honestly, probably not surprising, but over Hercule probably is Nuova Shenron. But with this, we had the dynamic of they could only do damage respective to what their area was in the Olympians. So like Melee Olympics can only do damage between melee combos, rush blasts, and other things of the sort, and B2s / Super could only do damage between B2s. Yeah, honestly, but something that was shared between both is that they could at least damage through clashes and health pushbacks, since that was not able to be modded.
And B1s. I don't think does anyone here have an explosive wave B1?
I think, who was it? It was Scouter Vegeta, I think, did like 100 points of damage with like an explosive wave, but I might be wrong.
That might be.
We have no idea.
There was just some like random areas where sometimes people would randomly take damage, like the mod broke for a second on like one hit, and it's like it happened so fast. It's like, wait, where did that damage appear from?
Yeah, you're correct. Scouter Vegeta has an explosive wave B1, and I think he used it. So there you go.
And then for the finale, we had Melee versus Super 4v4 with, Melee winning, because honestly, Melee was at a very heavy advantage, having to, at least because they can, do damage with their melee combos. So, yeah.
I'd like to add somewhat of a caveat, and that's the whole thing with the only dealing damage that way was announced multiple times, but people either didn't think it would be to 0 or didn't remember when they cast their votes, because a lot of people I talked to did not think it would be as drastic as it was and would have changed their votes.
I think if people understand it, if people knew it was that drastic, Scholar Vegeta probably would not be in there.
He probably would have been on Melee, if anything. I think he threw out 2 B2s, and he was in 2 rounds and the 5v5, and in all 3 matches he threw out 2 B2s, like in total. Like, he just didn't throw out any, so he could never hurt anybody. Now his melee combos were insane. The opponent didn't get to do anything. I think we had like a 6-minute match because of that, because it was just him punching like Nuova, and eventually Nuova started hitting a B2 here and there, but it took so long. That
it also doesn't help that Nuova's B2s are both like really high key cost. So like Scouter doing the melee shut that down.
Oh yeah, it took a while, that's for sure.
But I think
so. I know next season, I think people are going to vote a lot different, and I also know staff may or may not change some stuff with how it functions due to how it went. But I do know from their testing, they said it was like, and the 5v5 was pretty 50-50. It just came out with who did what when.
If I do remember, Scouter Vegeta was actually the only person to do damage with primarily clashes. which he was doing well in until Nova started, well, B2ing him.
So, yeah, I mean, to be fair, he is the only one. No, I guess Hercule has a Rush B2 too. But yeah, but Scout and Vegeta does have a Rush B2 that he loves to spam. Worth noting, I mean, for the 4v4, especially, Aurelie is on the melee Olympian side, and as an android, she can just sort of get in your face constantly and stop you from charging. So that's another reason. Because like Hercule, I forget what the matches particularly were, but Aurelie just wasn't taken out.
It was
fast.
Aurelie versus Hercule, and Hercule actually lived it by a couple hits because False Courage plus Present Bomb can do that.
Yeah, but I mean, for the 4v4, it kind of needed to be the Hercule show on the super side in order for them to win, and he just didn't do quite well enough to carry his team.
Yep. And even though he was 4th place in the melee Olympian side, Perfect Cell actually did a lot better in the 4v4 just because he was, well, of what criteria it had in there, and he was just let to run around.
Yep.
But with that, do either of you have anything else to say before we move on to the last and probably main event?
No, not too much. I do know you guys went a little special. Most people, because they took out healing Patars and added new Patars to be used for melee. Y'all still stuck with your Key +2 and Rush Blast build for Gogeta, and it actually worked very well, though it was a little bit of a surprise. I know messing with Key really messes with the AI, but it was still, I think, a lot of people taken aback by it was basically the normal build that you guys always do.
Just without indignation.
Because other people were having like attack +2 with no defense minus, so they were just getting straight upgrades to their builds, while you guys basically just went with the same thing and ended up doing just fine.
Yeah, I mean, so the thing with Gogeta is, like, Gogeta is not in this because he punches people. I mean, he does. He punches people quite well, but that's not why he's in the melee. That's not why he's a melee Olympian. He's in there because of his Rush Blast, and he needs Ki for those, and we really didn't want to mess those up. And also, he did kind of do poorly on the experimental build the previous week, so we figured, let's go back to basics for him.
And, well, he did almost win. He was within like half a bar between Gogeta and Aurelie.
I do expect to see like Janemba and characters like that aren't super B2 heavy and way harder at melee voted next season. Like B2 wise, I think there was like Maju's probably fit fine, Hercule obviously, Nova obviously, but I expect unless they have a spam build for scatter to that be someone who's definitely different. Who? I don't know. It would take some thinking for sure, but
I don't know the criteria for how people got in, but I honestly thought
it was staff chose. So
I would have thought someone
they were
like
put in and you could vote. So they looked at stats and me and Snuff, they did ask us coaches like who did we think. So everybody put in some lists of some B2ers and stuff, but it still kind of came down to whatever staff felt like was doing that season. So obviously the people we vote on will probably change each year as well based on who's doing well.
Yeah, who's doing what each season. But I thought for the super one primarily, I thought someone like Teen Gohan would have at least gotten into the vote area.
What's Teen Gohan's stats looking like this season?
I don't know.
I mean, he might have been on there too, and it's just
I can't remember who was on the poll.
That's another thing. Like nobody remembers. I remember Cell because he got in.
There were also people that were on the poll that were also a part of the All Stars, so they kind of cluttered up the poll as well.
But yeah, Teen Gohan's only had a 39k average this season, so I mean that's probably why if he wasn't on the poll, that's probably why.
Yeah, Scouter's only at a 42, so it's one of those like I think that is partially taken into account. It's also on community vote. Certainly he's had a rougher season, so he probably got pushed down. But yeah, I don't know. It's gonna be interesting if criteria, obviously this was first season, so the criteria was very experimental. So they're gonna have plenty of time to play with and refine it for this next season. So I think like having a better idea of who and why, just like how the All-Stars isn't something like new, that's kind of been around and it's a lot simpler because they've had some time to mess around with the ideas. This one was, I think it's been in the works for a little bit. Can't quote me on that because I'm not staff, but I think just
they
from
asked us a
talking,
little while ago.
yeah,
True.
it's only been like what 2 or 3 months that they ask, and staff doesn't necessarily work full time, so it's not like are they talking all the time. But in commentators chat, they definitely have said that they're going to they have plenty more time now to come up with more ideas to help make it more interesting because this was the first time. So you just like how sweepers evolved from last season to this season to be a little more competitive. It's like you don't know until it happens. So I'm excited to see what transpires because sweepers was a lot more fun with the characters having stats, and I hope it continues to evolve. Same with this one.
So something I will say, I just checked. Team Gohan wasn't in the poll, probably because he's only been 39k average. You know who should have been voted in over Scouter Vegeta if people had realized? 18. 18 really should have been.
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah, I think that just gets into that weird spot of the androids as well. Really, I don't think we had one in this game. I mean, you could say Perfect Cell because he's on androids, but not an actual android. I think the only android was in All Stars.
We had a Rayleigh.
Oh, I guess yeah, really on melee side. Yeah, it'd be interesting if we had one on spam side.
But before we move on, there was one other thing that I just remembered is that I don't remember who exactly did it, but we did actually believe the Otherworld map was modded in for the event and the next one we'll talk about.
Yes, the Otherworld tournament map from the arc that I think we met PyCon through. So
which that looked really nice.
Just big flat and no out of bounds.
Yep.
That was Vive who helped mod that in.
Yeah,
I think it's from a different modder, but he's the one that implemented it. Community is a trained crowd.
That's why Gogeta did so well. He's an Otherworld person. He knows the map. But anyway, shall we get moving on?
One last thing I will say. Finally, Gogeta decides to connect with Bing Bang Kamehameha.
And it does no damage.
Any other meat, and it does no damage.
He connected with it like 3 times in a row too. It was a glorious time.
Anyway.
Alright. Well, moving on, we have the All-Star Games, the biggest event of this week, which were, 3 matches, as you can see there by the score. Sorry, I'm moving a blanket. We had Team Kami with King Cold and Vegeta, Adult Gohan, Late Piccolo, and Birder versus Team Guru with Android 13, Majin Vegeta, Second Form Frieza, Lord Slug, and Buhan. So, honestly, really stacked teams. I think a lot of people were happy to see Majin Vegeta finally hit the field as well. And so to give my thoughts and opinions as an outsider, knowing you both are part of one of these teams, I honestly thought I honestly don't know what to think, but Second Form Frieza didn't seem to do particularly well.
It was stacked against us. Snuffy will tell you all day long. We had a team of MVPs versus 4 MVPs and a 30k character.
Yep. But
unfortunately, I think the way the draft's done just always puts Guru slightly behind because it's just like you're permanently second pick, so you don't get first pick and last pick is forced on you. unless they like expand the pool to like 12 people, you know, like make it like so last pick's not as punishing, or if they do, I think Snuffy, you recommended like 1, then 2 picks, then 2 picks, like snake it a little harder. That could certainly do it.
Yeah.
What I suggested is that right before the end, Team Guru gets their last 2 picks before Kami gets their last pick. So that way Kami will always get the first pick and the last pick. And then the rest is just back and forth like normal. So Guru would get the 3rd worst and the 2nd worst, but they wouldn't get the worst.
Mm-hmm.
Besides that,
Which
I think the matches went pretty well.
Yeah.
Only, funny enough, round 3 was the only one that Android 13 actually transformed in, and was probably the ones that he did the worst in. But otherwise, like, yeah, both teams really threw out a lot. Even though second form Frieza was struggling, like Majin Vegeta had good times, Lord Slug had good times, like Buhan and 13 did their man. It was just late Piccolo doing what he always does, 1 billion damage, and always tags every time. And Adult Gohan being a little bit of a wild card, being the second free agent in this one, and second form Frieza at least is like a form that's been tested a lot, where Adult Gohan, you know, you don't get a touch until free agents are allowed, so there's a lot more up in the air on how he would do and what role he would fill. So was an interesting fight.
But
Yeah.
personally, I want to ask at least both of you, what were some ideas that you wanted to go with for this all-star match?
So I guess we'll start with drafting, because that's the first step of the process. So on Team Kami's side, so the first thing, our first pick was N Vegeta. We definitely wanted N Vegeta. He was very versatile. We used him as a super character, which he did pretty well in. Yeah, I mean, he's just been versatile all season. He's just been an amazing member for Resurrected Warriors. Really, the only reason he's not doesn't have higher stats is because he's on Resurrected Warriors, and he's 3rd in the league. So, and then past that, late Piccolo, we definitely wanted, because in our eyes he was the best of the Eternal Life users. He has a lot of good B2s, he has a lot of good melee, and we figured that was something we wanted to really lock down early. And the third major thing was we didn't want second form Frieza, which to a certain extent means we wanted Birder because they had similar builds. But yeah, we did not want second form Frieza. He has not broken 40k in a month. So that was our main sort of drafting strategy. In terms of building, we did end up with King Cold, which was kind of rough. We wanted a Buhan or Android 13 more, I would say, but obviously you can't get all of them. So for the builds, we kept King Cold on his normal build because we figured he would do the best without changing. It would be a bit risky. Whereas late Piccolo, we figured was more versatile, so we put him on Dende's healing and launch a support build, and he did amazing, throwing out a bunch of light grenades, so that launch of support definitely paid off. And besides that, there was just a few, we basically used the main most recent builds of the characters with a couple changes for like 1 points. Like we gave Birder Combo Master over Indignation or something.
Door, what was the strategy for your team for drafting?
We knew they would get prio picks on everything, so we just tried to get the highest things we could. Everything we wanted was, their team was basically what we voted on. We just didn't get that pick. We always had to pick what was free. So we wanted N Vegeta, we got Majin Vegeta. We wanted, like, I mean, 13 was like the one we didn't. N Vegeta and 13 are probably the first 2 picks, so we'll take whatever they don't pick. Then next is probably late Piccolo and Majin Vegeta, so we'll take whatever they don't pick. And then we wanted to do Birder, or Adult Gohan, but they got those 2. So then we had to take Slug and Buhan. And then last pick, as I said, we didn't get to pick. They picked King Cold, so we were left with second form. It's part of where the draft afterwards felt a little rough. It was like, yeah, we ended up with a good team, but we never really got to like pick. It always was just like trying to get what was left, so they didn't get it. But that might just be how it is with being the second team. But I do wish there was like some swap up to give some more freedom. But it was always like, we got to pick this, not always because we want it, but because like if we don't pick Android 13 Majin Vegeta in the first two, then they get them. And it's just a weird conundrum. I still think it was a very solid squad. Everything except, I mean, technically, nobody had any build swaps. Buhan gained attack +2 and lost quick fast attack, so that Majin Vegeta and Android 13 can keep their quick fast attacks. And second form, Frieza lost Dende's. We figured they were going to probably screw it up anyways, so just give them more stats and have Dende's on 13 and Buhan, who probably better with it. So build-wise, it was super simple. It just came down to pick-wise, who can we get, what was open, and we managed to get all the stuff. I mean, 13 and Majin Vegeta were like top priority. It's just like after that, we definitely wanted to get Adult Gohan, Late Piccolo, or Burter, and we didn't get any of those, so the plan changed pretty wildly. But we were assuming we'd get Lord Slug like 4th anyways. We just had to go earlier, 3rd, since we panicked on who to grab with all the other guys going out.
Yeah, I think the way things worked out, you probably could have taken either Adult Gohan or Burter, but I think you ended up prioritizing Slug, which I think worked out. Slug worked really well, I would say.
Yeah, the issue is if we didn't, I think the issue came down to like if we didn't take Slug then, and you guys got Slug, we did take one of those two, we'd be in a weird build spot. And since a lot of these characters were from coaches on your guys' side, it was harder for us to build them because we were like, we don't really. So it's like we grabbed Slug because we had the Royals coach, so having Majin Vegeta and Slug, we at least knew how to build all them, but like Gohan, Burter, and Vegeta, King Cold, second form Frieza, like none of those guys we knew how to build. So we were trying to go for stuff we could also like better work with and were comfortable with. Though I think you were probably right, but I think it just came down to part of that, like we didn't expect you guys to do the order you did, because let's see, it was Vegeta, then 13, then Late Piccolo, so we did Majin Vegeta, and then went back and you guys got like Adult Gohan right then. And we thought about Burter right there. We also thought you guys might not do Burter because of having too many Eternal Life users potentially. So we thought we'd get Slug to secure that.
Yeah, but fortunately, Burter has quite a few builds that don't use Eternal Life, so it was easy to slot in there.
Yeah,
And
I
of
mean,
course,
you also had
Coach. Yeah.
Yeah, you also had Sentai. Same with like having King Cold. Like King Cold, like the entire season, Burter and King Cold, outside of 1 week each, I think, have been on Eternal Life. So is there a non-Eternal Life build? Yes, but obviously the majority of the season they've used it. So when you look at it, you go, what's the thought here? Wow, how do we do this?
And I will say, I mean, way closer than last season.
Yeah, I mean, it was very competitive for sure. I think it was a very good match, as you were just saying. Like, it was very competitive.
A whole lot of tags from Kami's side.
Yeah. But honestly, I hate to beat a dead horse, but it's honestly felt like it was just Frieza. If it had been anyone, like, any character higher on the rankings besides Frieza, then I think Guru would have won.
I don't even know if it had to be higher in the rankings. You guys know the frustration with Frieza spamming. Punishing Blaster's good, but it's a beam, so it can be dodged a lot. And the other one is a super delayed explosion, which just has a massive hitbox if they stand still for the 5 seconds that it charges up. So
and then
Frieza threw out a lot of B2s. Like, they threw up some of the higher amount of B2s, but the like 20k damage shows that they didn't hit with any B2s.
Yes. Yeah, that's the thing. We have had weeks where Frieza has hit with his ult, which he's very good at connecting with for some reason, and then did nothing else. So he just had that 20k from that.
Or then, or some weeks he's just really only good for his power body. That he gets a max power.
But there you go. So I would hope to see some changes to the drafting next season.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're still trying to change things up with it as well. Because obviously just leading up to the week, like, as we said, like in the 2 or 3 weeks that they were taking stats after the thing stopped, like second form fell hard. Like,
yeah,
it was just, that's what's happened every season though, is when you cut it off, the weeks leading up to the event, things can change a lot. Because if you cut it off at week 6, Android 16 was in there for some reason, because he had that elite, and he didn't have enough bad performances that dragged him out of it yet, which was weird. Just one of those things.
I mean, it is very funny how Frieza is the only character on this list who's under 50k right now, just because of those 2 absolutely awful performances in the 2 weeks after the voting. Or rather, after the cutoff.
Yeah, we also had to panic look up through your guys' testing and saw there was a lot of builds on second form, so we were like, alright, what AI, what build? I mean, guess we just go with the defense build and just hope. Piccolo AI looks alright, it's what you guys used recently, but that also wasn't doing super hot, so it's hard to say. It's just one of those weird areas, but again, I think it went fine. I mean, same thing happened the last season with some characters not being as good as you'd expect them to. But it's also because, like, with the Olympians now, the votes split, so you can only get so many people in so many spots.
That is true.
There's certainly a lot of characters that could have made it in there.
I mean, on the other side, that's what's exciting. Like next season, it'll be a different set of 18 characters that make it in to the All-Star games.
Or maybe we see Majin Vegeta for a 3rd time.
Yeah.
But anyway, it seemed like it was a real fun 2 events for this week, especially one that was new, a little bit more experimental, maybe not people's liking, but hey, it only gets better with time, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
With that, do you guys have really anything else you guys want to say?
I mean, week 10 coming up. This will be up before it. An announcement just came out, so be on the lookout. It's happening on Sunday instead of Saturday due to just commentator availability and wanting to have 2 commentators. Solo commentating is frowned upon by the staff, so we are having to adjust by 1 day to make sure that the content still comes out at the highest quality for you guys, but it'll be nothing too crazy, just one of those slight alterations this week.
And I mean, I guess we can reveal our benches if we've decided on them, but I don't know if it's you wanna.
I mean, I have Kid Buu out. I need to have him out again.
It's going to be after builds are revealed, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, this will come out on Friday, so people listening, I mean, you're not up against Donut, you're against Hybrid, so I wouldn't worry too much about anybody listening in, or Rugrats, so we're both safe in terms of potential people listening in.
Yeah, we've already beaten those teams.
Yeah. So we're benching Frieza.
Yeah, what'll be interesting is week 11, the free agent bench can swap again. You guys obviously have a decent one, so there'll be some thoughts on that. I've heard some stuff from some teams that they may pull out their guy just to fix up somebody else who's been performing and they've been trying to get work to get results in the last 6 or 5 weeks. So yeah, the next cast will have a lot more predicting to do because it's the final time for a free agent bench swap.
It'll be very interesting to see.
And since we're getting close to the end of the season, some teams, if they're confirmed out, might do testing.
Yeah. I don't believe any teams will be 100% locked. Sentai could get close. What's this week? Is this week divisional?
It's
I mean, obviously it's a divisional, but
it's South Kai divisionals.
right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. So
South Kai, and
depend-
then I think after that is North Kai again.
yes. Yeah. So depending on how Sentai does against Cold, they might end up locked out, and depending on how well Derp does against Muscle.
Yep, and I think a lot of these guys are really close this season. It's like you can't really tell who's going to be out.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, though. We're sadly getting to the point where a team like Sentai, if they don't go on a huge win streak, are probably not going to have the best chances. So it'll really just come down to these final 6 matches and how well they can do there to really push themselves. Because it's, I mean, technically, if they win the next 5 matches, they would be at the top of the league, because the next Derp has 5, Cold and Muscle have 6, and they're at 2 wins, so it's not impossible. And with this being a divisional and getting a win, then they just have to tie the team they beat today, or beat this weekend. So Sentai still has a chance. Obviously, West Kai, you guys are in a super competitive spot. Only RW is out of the picture. And then East and North are basically dead even as well. So there's no Kais that are like, oh, this guy's definitely out. There's just Resurrect Warriors are basically can't be taken off their bye, unless Rugrat's going on a win streak and Resurrect Warriors lose every match. It's very highly unlikely.
They're not. Yeah, I mean they're not locked into the bye because it's only a 4-win gap.
They're just
But
locked in the playoffs.
they are definitely locked into the playoffs.
Yeah.
Well,
So-
I mean, hey, we could end up seeing something like a what's it? Some bench like a Tapion. I don't know. For Yajirobe just to see.
or like Devore comes back in. Maybe maybe Chaozu will get on the field.
Maybe.
No, that's not going to happen. That one I know is not going to happen. I know there are others that could happen, and I guess I could spoil. I think like androids are definitely, because 16's the only reason 16 is at like 28k average is because of the 100 and like 30k
The 1v3
Elite
week he
week?
had.
So if you take away that, he is definitely like early Piccolo. If he becomes a 30k character, is just better than Android 16. So
Yeah.
even a bad early Piccolo is a better 16 this season. But there's, I think, a few other teams that might be looking. I know, like you guys, it's not even switching out for a bad character. Bringing in Garlic Jr. would be like probably helpful at this point, especially if second form's just gonna not want to do anything.
Especially since Garlic kind of conflicts with second form's builds a little bit. So
Yeah.
if,
And
if,
Budokai.
anyone's going to be stopped.
Budokai, another team. Obviously, they have a pretty decent side lineup with switching out Yamcha and the Tao and Super Tao. Cold Kingdom has base Broly. While I know they prefer Monster Zarbon, you can't ever be sure. You never know. I know Monster Zarbon is a 42 average character. He's technically the second best, but we also know base Broly can just spam. So that's certainly a thing. And while Team Derp most likely not going to bring in Kui, he certainly could if somebody like Salza, or I mean Dodoria has been struggling, and we saw Kui in the spam build in TOP, so we know he can do a wide variety as well.
And then GT they did take Pilaf out, and even though the one time he was in, it was Android 13 Elite Week that week, I don't think he did bad, and even then they still have
that one
somewhat of
week
a
he did
pick.
27,000. Base GT Goku has a 28,000 average, so he didn't do too bad for sure.
And then and even if like they decided to put him back on, Pan isn't the worst character. She at least has some
Oh, Pan's
tools.
been doing fine. Pan's not been the issue. The issue's been the fact that like everybody does less than 40k except for Shin. Shin Shenron is their only character above a 40k average. That is why they are struggling. A lot of people do like 35,000, but that's not enough. Obviously, I could switch back in Majin Buu. That's certainly on the mind. He's a 17k average character, while a pool's only a 27k. It's not. It's it certainly is an option, albeit a difficult one. And I don't really know if there are any others that could happen. I know Royals have tempted Videl, and I think she came in for like 1 week. So whether she stays or not. Resurrect Warriors might even bring Yajirobe because, as we said, they're guaranteed in playoffs. So they might bring in Yajirobe just to get some in-league play with him, just to see him. And obviously, Sentai have already been doing lots of stuff with their free agent bench, so they could do some weirder stuff and it'd be kind of wacko crazy. I don't know. We'll have to find that out when it happens.
Yep. But with that, do you guys think that was everything that needed to be said?
I think so.
I'll see you guys in week 13.
Yeah, it's a fun one. But with that, we've come to the end of the Capsule Cast. Thanks to these two people with me, just telling me about what happened in the All Stars, what happens for like the teams and stuff. And with that, we have Discord, a website, a link to the website, and a link to Twitter in the description below. Trust us, we don't bite. Come visit. Maybe come check out the rules. Maybe join teams yourselves. But with that, I was your host, Destiny.
I was Doorguard.
I'm Snuffysam.
And we will be seeing you next time.